Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Institute of Analytics Student Sprint launch webinar. In this webinar, we're just going to go over the key details you and your team will need to be able to succeed in the sprint. There's quite a lot of information in these slides, so feel free to pause or watch the video at a later point in your own time. The slide deck and the recording of this webinar will all be on the Google Classroom, where the competition will be hosted. Don't worry if you don't have access to the Google Classroom yet. You will receive an email after registration letting you access the Google Classroom. The first email will go out today in about a couple of hours, so there's absolutely no worries if you don't have access to the Google Classroom yet. My name is Rohan Whitehead, and I will predominantly be running this competition. This is an international competition with teams from India, Nepal, UK, and other countries. So it's a really exciting time to be part of the IoA and really a really good time to really take part in the benefits of this competition. It'll be especially useful for your CV and being able to prove you have real experience with project management alongside data processes. Firstly, let's set some context. I'm sorry if a little bit of the slide is blocked by my webcam. YouTube annoyingly does not allow me to move my webcam. However, nothing really important will be blocked. So a lot of you will have seen this picture before. This is the Doomsday Clock, and it is built by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists to essentially predict how close the world is to catastrophic disaster. Here, we see the doomsday clock in 2025 is 89 minutes to midnight. Midnight being catastrophic destruction of the world by man-made threats. 89 seconds is the closest we have ever been to destruction, whether it be from war, whether it be from global warming, whether it be from social inequality or just tensions in the world. We are extremely close to destruction and extremely close to essentially the extinction of the human race, relatively speaking. A few times for the last couple of years, and one time in 1953, we have been at 90 seconds to midnight, but 89 seconds to midnight is the closest we've ever been to destruction. And these seconds are exponential. The difference between 89 seconds and 90 seconds is massive. So we really want to be scared of the hand going closer to midnight. This is a very interesting concept. I recommend you guys look it up if you have not heard of the Doomsday Clock before, but it's updated every January and it really shows us essentially how right or wrong processes in the world are going. Threats that the clock evaluates and the committee behind the clock evaluate include climate change, technological disruption, global health threats such as COVID, such as pandemics, geopolitical tensions such as the Ukraine-Russia tension right now or the tensions in the Middle East or China, and social inequality and poverty levels. These all accumulate into the clock, essentially spitting out a number as to how quote unquote doomed we are as a society and as a planet. So, your role in shaping the future. You are IoA members, you are data scientists, business analysts, students of the future. You should be excited to have your opportunity in playing a part and having a meaningful impact. And to have a meaningful impact, you need to use your skills, your ideation, and your creativity to build tools and solutions to the problems that are part of the current world. As data scientists, as data analysts, or any form of analysts, your job will be to find solutions to problems and use the data you have available to you to be proactive and help people and create an impact. So we challenge you now to think creatively and critically about how data and digital tools can be harnessed to solve the problem of the doomsday clock. We are looking to try and find a way to push the hand back to 90 and hopefully further back from that. So now's your chance to really start thinking during this competition, how can you make the world safer, fairer, and more resilient by building and harnessing a data-centric tool or service? You have to bear in mind that every product or service we use, whether it be eBay, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, at a point have all been an idea that has evolved through multiple pitches and iterations into a minimum viable product. You now are at the stage of building your own ideas and pitching them to us as part of this competition. But before I go into that, I need to firstly outline what the competition is. So, this IoA Student Shark Tank, the competition that is happening right now, is run by us, the Institute of Analytics, and we are a global professional membership body focused on advancing data analytics and digital skills, as well as networking and professionalism within the scope of analytics. This competition is going to be a business pitch competition, very similar to the Shark Tank series, which has a US series, has an Indian series, has a UK series, where people will bring in their products or their minimum viable products and pitch them to sharks who will evaluate them and judge them and assess whether they are worth investing in. In this case, we won't be assessing whether they are worth investing in. We will essentially be ranking them with winners receiving prizing based on the level of the pitch. Ideally, we want you to collaborate in teams of 1 to 5 members to develop innovative business or product ideas with a digital or data-driven approach. We want a strong emphasis on the digital and data-driven approach that you have taken, but the goal is to contribute to pushing back the doomsday clock, the clock that is showing us how close we are to destruction through different factors. We want any product or any idea that will help push back one of those factors that is making the clock worry us. The pitch itself will be a video pitch, and you will submit it via Google Classroom. We will get into that later, and it will be judged professionally, and you will be given feedback and a certificate regardless of how you do. Finalists and people who the essentially 3 teams who we pick have the strongest pitch will be invited into a live competition call where we will once again rehear the pitch in live time and give Shark Tank style questions, evaluation, and feedback. And then whoever wins will be told a few days later, and they will win prizing in the form of Amazon vouchers and features on our website. So what is the challenge? What is the competition? What will you be doing and solving? Your mission is essentially to develop a business or product idea that, one, addresses a pressing global problem, an international problem that is affecting all of us, or it may be a problem that's only affecting a certain area of the world. But it has to be a global problem, and it has to be affecting the doomsday clock. So it cannot be something so niche as to a problem that only affects a few people in the world. You'll have to think about how to incorporate a strong digital or data element into this product or business idea. And then you'll have to present it, demonstrating how feasible it is to enter the global market right now and its actual tangible potential for real world application. For example, your solution cannot be to send a satellite into space. It needs to be bound to realism. It has to be something that we should be able to expect someone who is entering the market to do. If you're unsure about which areas are really affecting the doomsday clock, or you're really not too sure which global problems you want to solve, here are some examples just at the bottom. You could, for example, create a product that tackles climate action, maybe tracks climate change better through visualizations, or target or reduces carbon footprints for companies, or pertains or promotes sustainability. It could be something more to do with healthcare, well-being, access to healthcare, global access. There's a big gap in how much access there is to healthcare between more developed countries and less developed countries, which does have global healthcare implications. It could be something to do with education. To be able to change the world, you need to assume that people will be educated in what they are changing. It could be a tool to bridge global skills gaps and to really educate people about climate change and the different problems in the world. It could be a tool that may help social equality, promote inclusivity, and reduce inequality. Or it could be a tool to promote peace by stopping wars breaking out and promoting diplomacy. There are many other options available to us right now, but these are a few that can really essentially kickstart your thinking process. If you identify other global issues with the world, other issues that you really think are making us regress as a society or getting closer to destruction or failure, feel free to solve that problem and create a product for that issue. As long as you set the scene well in your pitch and really give us the context of the problem you are solving, I'm sure that will be completely fine. So why participate? This is a lot of effort. You're creating a pitch, presenting it, and potentially presenting it again in real time. What's the incentive? Well, firstly, skills development. This is a great chance for you to develop a framework to turn a creative idea into a practical solution. This is what employers will be looking for. Proof that you can work on project management in the scope of using your skills in data and analysis. So you'll develop skills in business planning, project management, and presentation, as well as communication. You'll learn to understand questioning and prepare for questioning in a specific context, as well as learning to storytell using data to really convey the point and the solution you are providing. This is a competition, and you'll have the opportunity to compete internationally, an opportunity you don't get very often, especially within your student days. And you'll also obviously gain hands-on experience with applying digital theory and tools to business scenarios. If you are someone who wants to be an entrepreneur or someone who is interested to see if they have the capability to pitch a product and or has a product in mind that they really want to produce in the real world, this will give you experience and they'll give you a bit of foresight as to what your key strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to product pitching. Alongside that, with more tangible pricing, you'll be able to improve your CV and put this project on your CV to really prove to employers that you have taken part in a project management competition. All submissions will receive certifications that they can show on their online CV and on LinkedIn. And the winning team will receive a £50 Amazon voucher per participant. It doesn't necessarily have to be pounds, it can be in your home currency, as well as a feature article showcasing your achievement for each participant on our website, which will be showed with all our members and will have a global um, audience. So, what are the competition parameters? Firstly, we need to understand that we're not asking you to tell us we're going to send a satellite into space to track environmental cloud movement over multiple continents. We are expecting something fairly modest. Teams should assume that you have a starting budget of $5,000 to develop a minimum viable product. We're not talking about large scale business operations that will dramatically change the way the world works. If you have a viable product that will dramatically change the way the world works, but you can build it off a very modest starting amount of capital, then please pitch that idea. But the goal is to demonstrate how you can come up with an impactful solution that can be developed with limited resources. This shows creativity and strategic planning and is the realistic scenario most startups are in. You will see here and there some startups with millions and millions of pounds of funding, but realistically, to be able to pitch a realistic idea that will enter the market, you need to be able to build it with a low amount of capital to start with. To reiterate, we're not asking you to build the products. This is just a hypothetical budget for you to pitch your product off. Secondly, developmental timeline wise, the development phase runs for 3 weeks. And by the development phase, I mean the time between this launch and the deadline for pitches. When any pitches submitted beyond the end of the 25th of March will not be evaluated and judged by the judges. You should really make a note of this deadline because I won't be accepting any deadlines on the 26th of March, even if it's 1 minute past midnight. This is essentially how it is in the real world. There are tight deadlines and they are non-negotiable. 3 weeks is generally a lot of pressure to come up with an idea and pitch it in a good way. This is a fairly high pressure environment which does simulate real world projects quite well. In terms of the product development stage, where you're pitching your product, whether it's in just an idea or a minimum viable product, or even a prototype, that is completely up to you. It depends on the products that you have and at what level you want to pitch it. Maybe you have a very out of the box idea that will have large implications is affordable within £5,000, but you're not entirely sure how the product will look. Then you can just pitch the idea with a fully fleshed out plan and how it will help the world. As long as you know what solution you're solving, an idea of the products, and how it will affect people tangibly, then you can pitch that product. If you have a more niche, more better understanding of your idea, so you can make a prototype, or at least describe a prototype, please feel free to pitch that prototype with visualizations, maybe a diagram. This will boost your chances of doing well. But focus on out of the box thinking, tangible outputs like such as visualizations, such as pipeline diagrams, or even data flow diagrams, and make your pitch engaging and clear. So in terms of the actual pitch formats, you'll be expected to submit a pre-recorded video pitch, so just a voiceover and a screen share of a presentation, for example, with a maximum length of 5 minutes. The pitch should incorporate visual aids such as visualizations and diagrams, which you've talked about already. What the pitch should cover, it should start by covering and setting the scene and the context of the problem you are addressing. Feel free to bring in real life examples of why the problem you're addressing is a problem and how it's negatively affecting the world. Then you'll provide the proposed solution by whether it's a service or a product, and you'll show how you're using digital and data technologies supported by data-driven insights for that product. You'll then briefly be expected to cover the target market and the more business side of the proposal with the business to tech potential, maybe the ability for the product or service to scale internationally, and still have a focus on the real world impact of this scaling. And then we'll expect a brief budget breakdown about how your product or your service has used the $5,000 starting capital. We don't expect you to know exactly how much money that your product will cost. We are just expecting estimations. We want proof that you have considered the idea of working off a low amount of capital. Pitches should include scene setting elements. We really want to know the context of your mindset, why you're solving this specific problem, why you think this problem is such a big deal, and how your solution is unique and solves problems better than existing solutions in the real world. Bold ideas, innovative thinking, really shine, really try to be unique and stand out. I guarantee you the winners of this competition will have a unique out of the box idea that isn't very similar to an existing technology in the real world. If you hypothetically just copy an existing technology in the real world and change a few words, you are very unlikely to succeed in this competition. So, how do we define success? I've told you what we expect you to do and what the competition guidelines are, but how will you succeed? What are the guidelines? As I've said multiple times, your project should be creative, but it should also be achievable and feasible. It should be something that could be realistically made into a product or service by a startup, by a small team in the real world. You need to also think about the social and economic impact of your products. It may be great for the environment, it may be great for peace, but will it have any side effects? Will it have any negative impact on certain demographics? How will your product make a real difference in the long run? And I think more food for thought here, but to truly push back the doomsday clock, to truly get us further away from destruction or global catastrophes, we need a product that works proactively, not something that simply reacts to global disasters or reacts to war. We want a product that stops them happening in the first place. This is the difference between preventing war and responding to war. When we think reactively, we are essentially conceding the fact that something bad will happen. This is not the mindset we need when we're pushing back the doomsday clock and preventing natural disasters and man-made disasters. We need a mindset of stopping the possibility happening in the first place, not conceding the possibility happening, then reacting to it efficiently. The judging criteria for your pitches is below. And as we can see, the use of data and the delivery of your pitch with visualizations and out-of-the-box thinking are the two most important categories, with feasibility and market feasibility also mattering a lot. Social impact is very hard to assess, especially if you have a more unique idea. It can be very hard to assess how it will affect different demographics as a whole. So feel free to maybe spend less time on that part. That will really be difference maker between the best pitches, but it won't be, it's understandably a very hard thing to conceptualize when you don't fully understand the demographic you're thinking about. So the events timeline for this competition, this will obviously in the launch webinar. In a couple of weeks, we'll do a pitching workshop. This will be me doing a workshop, essentially a webinar about useful tips for pitching, useful tips for communication, how to really get your point across, how to set the context of your pitch very well, stuff like that. I'll also include a little bit about how to assess your demographic you're affecting, how to assess economic and social impacts, how to assess things that maybe other people will miss, such as upstream costs, downstream costs, different emission scopes for your carbon impact, stuff like that. In 3 weeks' time, we'll have the submission deadline, and you have to submit your pictures before this deadline. Where you submit and how you submit will be covered in the Google Classroom, which you do not have access to yet. Finalists will be notified on the 21st of March, and then the live call with the finalists will be on the 3rd of April, with the winners announced on the 5th of April. So this covers definitely over 1 month and slightly over like 1 month, 1 week. Okay, uh, hmm, hmm. Hi. Sorry about that. I have a slightly faulty webcam which is affecting my mic slightly, but so it disconnected and now I am back. Sorry about that. As I was saying, the event calendar and all information pertaining to the competition will be on the Google Classroom. Actively check the Google Classroom from day to day and week to week, as I will be posting at a daily rate communication, resources, tips, videos about product development or about the competition as a whole. People who use the tips on the Google Classroom will be much more likely to succeed in the judging phase. The Google Classroom itself, at about 1 p.m. today, so in about 1.5 hours, an email will be sent out with the Google Classroom invite. The email will be sent out to anyone who has registered with a team in the competition. If you have not registered yet, don't worry. In the next slide, there will be a QR code where you can get registered. The Google Classroom is where all communication will take place with daily videos, tips, and guidance, as I have said. You will be able to find discussion boards, competition information, and your competitors in this classroom. To make the most of the competition and really make a name for yourself, please do take part in the competition and discussion boards and be as opinionated as you want. In terms of registration, the registration link and the registration form can be found below. If you scan the QR code, you should be taken to the registration form. New teams will be invited to the Google Classroom daily until the end of the 4th of March. This is from this point onwards, I will not be accepting new teams and sending them the Google Classroom link. All of the registered teams are currently listed below the QR code, with exception to any teams that registered after this webinar started. There are a couple of unnamed teams, so if you know you didn't make a name for your team, don't worry, I've taken you into account. But if you've expected your team name to appear in the registered teams, please check the list there. And if it does not appear, you may need to register again or contact me at my email. I'm just going to pause on this slide for a couple minutes to allow for people to use the QR code who need to use it. This QR code can also be found on the IoA LinkedIn account in a recent post that we have made. Okay. It's of note that this competition is only for IoA student members. So if you are not, so many of you, I think most of you will likely have sponsored memberships through your educational institution and universities. But for those who don't, we do have a limited time offer going on where you can get 50% off the price of a year's membership with the code StudentSprint25 or using the QR code below. I will pause on this slide for a minute just to allow people who need to use the QR code to use the QR code. Okay, so that is the end of the launch webinar. As I say, this competition is really exciting for people who want to take part in an international competition and test their project management skills. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask it in the chat now. Otherwise, this video will be on the classroom if you ever need to access it again, and the deck of slides will be emailed to everyone who has registered in the competition. I wish you luck, and I'll be speaking to you guys all in the Google Classroom daily as part of the discussion board to make sure you guys are on the right track. I strongly recommend taking part in this competition as much as you can, as it is great for your CV and you don't get opportunities to succeed in a really international business pitching competition as often as maybe you should. So don't take this for granted and good luck in the competition. I will wait for about a couple minutes just in case there's any questions in the chat, but if not, this will be the end of the webinar.